Hello. About to get started here. Today we're going to work on some pathfinding to figure out where our roads should be placed. And then possibly having a little sprite walk around the path that we created. Turn my voice down a little bit, hitting the yellow there. Should be a little better. Alright, let's jump in. So, let's talk about some things that changed, well, yesterday when I didn't stream. Just a few changes. First one is, I just went ahead and rounded out the scale for when we're zooming in and out. And what that does is it makes things less precise and hopefully reduces some of the errors. However, it didn't really seem to help, but I'm going to keep it in because I think it makes sense. And anything below 2 digits of rounding off just doesn't work. You just don't, like, I mean, it probably would work if you increase the speed at which you're scaling, but at that speed, it just doesn't work right. So, and then the second change that I made, you see here, is that I changed the texture atlas to have a sampler that uses min, mag, and map filtering set to nearest. I think the default for most of these is nearest already, except for, let's see, sampler, can't click that, there we go. Yeah, so it's nearest for everything except for the min filter. And when I changed that, we removed quite a few artifacts when rendering. There's still a few lines left, and I have to figure out what's causing those. But we are closer to having that fixed. Just running it now, so you can see we zoom out, a lot less artifacts. In fact, like at this particular place, we don't have any. Some movement places, positions, you can see we get them. Seems like when you stop though, they go away. But not in all cases. Like here, at this particular zoom level, you can see quite a few errors. And I think that has to do with how the scaling function works. Even though we made it less precise by rounding things, we still have probably like quarter or even like an eighth of a pixel, which can lead to these weird cases where the GPU doesn't like know what to do properly. And essentially, like, we have fractional values for our width and height of the projection. Like the orthographic projection has like a fractional value that it's using, which isn't good. We want to probably keep that like whole numbers only for the like sort of like the top left, bottom right, which should be easy enough to do. But that's not something that I think I'm going to worry about for today. I can just go ahead and get these things committed here. Removed some. Alright, so today we're going to work on sort of like finding the paths between our road points. That's going to be really easy with the pathfinding lib, at least. Crate, that is. So just pathfinding, I think is what it's called. And the latest version is 2.1. When I don't add the smaller version number here, it just defaults to using whatever is the latest. And ideally, hopefully, the crate maintainer is using that for non-breaking changes anyways. So you'll just get like bug fixes and just useful things rather than breaking things. And then if we want to like actually upgrade the package, we could move to like 2.2 in the future or whatever. Same with Bevy too. That's why it's set to 0.5 because we want those fixes and non-breaking changes. And that's why I don't use more specific versions. Although if you know a crate doesn't really have like a good strict rule of thumb on that, and they're 0.1, like 0.5, 0.1 breaks things, and you just set it to something more specific, so that way you're not freaking out later. Alright, so last time we generated the road points, and we did that by calculating some angles, basically in a circle, and then randomly rotating that whole entire circle by a random rotation. And then we basically cast rays to the edge of the island, and we did that by checking for if there's a water tile. If there is, then we know that's the edge of the island. And then basically append, like find a random point along that ray and push that to our road points vector. And then we can just return this straight up here. And we can say that this returns a vec of a vec2. And we also inserted these little town sprites. Oops. These little town sprites for where our road points are. Right. We were doing a move there when we were iterating over the points. But yeah, you can see the little towns, villages, whatever you want to call them. Just temporary until we figure out like exactly how we want to place villages. And right now it's really hard to see like what the order is. Sometimes it's obvious, like, okay, these are going to be connected. But like here, does it go all the way over here, or does it go up first and then all the way back over and then up there? So it would be interesting to see. And one of the things we might want to try playing around with is just like maybe like the random range isn't so great depending on like the last village that was placed. That way it keeps like, it's not so zigzaggy, I guess is what I'm getting at. The other thing we could do is just make the range that they're placed less, and it'll be maybe hopefully less zigzaggy. Like here is an example of like, until we figure out the pathing, it's kind of difficult knowing like what order these are in right now. But the order should be good. We just need to get this pathing in. So to do that, the best thing to do is to read up on the pathfinding, create the docs for it. We can just click on the documentation. And this crate has a few different the right one? I think it is. Yeah. Okay. Yes, this has a few different ones, and we're just gonna use A star. Just standard A star for right now. And then I kind of like how this code is here, although this one's pretty nice too. But we're using vec2s, and we can't really implement this stuff for a vec2 unless we created our own vec2, which, I don't really see the need of doing that. So the first thing we need is a goal. So let's just get started here. Find road path. And this will take our road points. We could just take a reference of them. I don't need to move them into here. And then we'll also need the pathfinding, tile map. And unfortunately we need it to be mutable. Well, we do because we're gonna call it insert tile, but get tile for some reason is also mutable, which I think I might put in a PR to remove that requirement eventually. And then we're gonna have a vec of vec2s. There we go. So our road path, vec, that we return. Alright, and then down here we can say road points equals, and then we can call find road path. So we actually don't want to do it like this because essentially our goal needs to be the second item in this vector array thingy in our list. And our starting point is going to be the first item in the vector. We can just clone it. I'm sure there's probably a way of doing this to get the actual vector 2 instead of doing it like this, but I'm fine doing it this way. Goal equal points, road point index. And then we here. That's just kind of help visualize things a little bit. Remove the comment later. And then our starting point is going to be the goal. So when we loop back around, the previous goal is the new starting point. Yeah. That's fine. Alright, I want to think about doing the pathfinding, so we go back to here. So, in order to make things simpler and easier for our understanding, well, and just calculating things, calculating everything simpler, we want to actually have this be an item that looks more like this. And maybe it'd just be better to store the road points as integers in the first place. That way we didn't have to do it like this. But I think it's fine to do it like this too. For now. Just a lot of casting. Okay, easy enough. Yeah, comparing floating, the reason why I did that is because comparing floating point numbers is kind of ridiculous. And this ABS diff works with I-32 already, which makes it simple to use. And this find road path along and the generate road probably should just be in their own files. Don't see why we need that. There we go. And then it probably makes sense to organize these by ascending value. Alright, and then like our path is going to be equal to a star. The start is the starting point. The successors are essentially, that's the yeah, it's a function that gives you the neighbors. So we'll need something like find neighbors, and we'll have to pass the tile map in. And the position should be an I-32. And then essentially what we want to do is check to see, not like this, but to check to see if the neighbors exist. And then I think that gets returned as a, yeah, like what neighbors exist are returned as points. I'm not sure why it maps it to this, where you have like a point and then a 1. Maybe the documentation explains that. Ah, the cost. Right. Makes sense. Okay. So that's simple enough. So probably the easiest way is just to do something like north. Neighbor north equals. And then we'll have this new position, which is going to look something like 0 position +1. And the sprite order is just going to be 0. Now, when we're sort of checking here to whether or not we should actually return this, I think it's safe to assume that the points are going to be well within the bounds of the island, which means that you're not gonna not have a tile, because we're not gonna be anywhere near the edge of the map since our island's surrounded by water. In which case it's probably mostly safe to just unwrap here without worrying about a panic. Probably, most likely. Maybe not. But it'll be fine for right now. And then that gives us a raw tile, and then we can just sort of copy this and do it for south, west, and we'll do west is fine, east, and then we can just change the logic here. Alright, so that's just like your basic find neighbor stuff right here. We have to rename these south, west, east. Alright, now depending on whether or not the tile is land or water, we want to return the point of the tile. And code-wise, I'm not trying to do this in a way that's fast or optimized. I'm just trying to do it in a way that gets it done quickly. So, excuse the mess of code here. But we're gonna have an array of neighbors, and that's what gets returned. And it will be a vec of I32. I32? I think the goal is I32. Or the cost is I32. I mean, we'll assume it is. Alright, however, these neighbors are not going to be that. We're just going to iterate and into map point 1, and that's what gets returned. And we probably have to collect that too. There we go. Which makes this just a list of our points, which is what we want. And then just some basic checks here. I believe index is the sprite index, and we need to know if it's water or not, which we can do by checking down here to see what we use for water. 19. probably be helpful. Water. I think this is snow. Rock 2. Rock 1. Forest. Grass. There. That's more legible now. Alright, and then we just we want to know if it's not water, then push our position here. Again, this is not like optimized code or even like well thought out code. It's just something quick that gets the job done. We're just gonna copy that, and change everything to something that makes sense. South, west. Wait a second, west is not +1. There we go. Let's make it make sense. That way we don't get confused later on. +1, okay. And then essentially we're just going to have a function here and I think it's XY like this, where we call and that's actually what gets returned. And then we're missing some stuff here, so let's just format this code a little bit better. That's confusing the crap out of me. I think that makes sense though. There we go. Alright, and then we need, yeah, it's just the type hinting here is a little annoying. You can turn it off, but it's fine for right now. We need the heuristics and the success. Essentially you could just copy and paste that here, where goal is lowercase for us. And then we have the success, which is, again, so we can just copy and paste this. Changing the goal to be the right thing. Why doesn't it like our starting point? Ah. Alright, and then that gives us a path, a possible path. We might not actually have a path, so but we can print it out here and see if our code works. Helps if we make sure this stuff is right. Why are you complaining? Alright, we can just clone it. Yeah, that's why, another reason why I want to make that different. Cannot sample empty range in RNG. I thought we fixed that. Because that should be happening in it's actually probably happening in the code up here, right here. It's probably because our range doesn't make sense here. We need a better way of calculating that. But for now, let's see what it's outputting. Yeah, okay, so there we have some paths. Alright, and we don't know currently if those paths make sense. So what we want to do is we have our road path here, and we want to insert. I do not remember how to merge vectors in Rust. Append. And again, we're just going to assume that we have a path. And hopefully we do. I don't think there's going to be a case where we don't, though. Okay. What's the global? Alright, okay, so we just want 0 here. First item in the tuple. And consider immutably borrowing here. I want that to be up there. Just clone that. No? Oh, we're doing this backwards. My bad. Wait, which way does it go? Why are both mutable? Moves all of the elements. No. I don't really want to move it. I just want to copy it over. Maybe extend is what we want. Yeah. And if I read this, extends the collection with the contents of an iterator. Yep, that's what I want to do. Cool. Okay, and we're expecting a vector too, but I think it would make more sense. Like, our map coordinates are in I-32. Like, it seems like it would just make more sense to return I-32 here. And perhaps just start using, like, our own vector that is made up of I-32s. Instead of a tuple. Although a tuple works pretty good here. Alright, so now we have our road path. And we can kind of do something like what we did up here, where we iterate over our road point, but this would be road path. And this road point, we can just delete all that because it's already in the format that we need. Isn't it tile map? No, it's not. Need to be more consistent. Let's rename this one up here. And let's rename this one down here. There we go. Okay, and we don't want 36 because that's just like our village texture. So if we look here, that's what that one is. So if we just sort of count, we have 5, 6, 7. It's just like our road texture in the middle here. And I don't want to get into auto tiling today, so I'm not going to. We'll just use that. Oh, and we're changing the wrong one, of course. And that's an and. We don't want an and. A reference, that's what I meant. I think we said 7. I guess we'll find out shortly. Yeah, look at that, nice. Okay, so you'll notice like straight away we have some issues. First off, our loop is not like connected together, so it's not like a loop. It ends as a start and an end. So we need to include the a path check between the very last point and the very first point. That's easy enough to do. We can just append the let's see, where is it? We can just append the list here of road points to have the starting point at the end, and then that'll fix that issue. So that's issue 1. And then the second issue is our path is very square, and that's because when we're doing the pathfinding, we're only checking the north, south, west, and east corners. And we really need to check diagonals too. That way the path can move in a diagonal manner. And then the last problem is when we did this, we removed all the villages, which is fine, but for debugging purposes, it's kind of nice to see where our original points are to make sure that we're not pathing in a weird way, if that makes sense. So a couple issues to fix, and those should be pretty easy. Let's start with the road points here. And so what we can do real quick down here is we can say road points dot push road points 0 and I think the vec2 I'm getting confused by the global there, but I'm pretty sure a vec2 what is global? Oh, allocator. Okay. I haven't seen that before, so makes sense though. But yeah, the vec2 here is copy. Yeah. So we don't have to clone it, which that makes sense. So basically, we're at the very end of the of the vector we're pushing the road points. Yeah. Interesting. Okay, back to the code. So, real quick, we can check to see if that worked. And we might not want to actually include that in the list of road points, but I think the road points here we'll probably just ignore and not care about. But yeah, now we actually have like a full loop where there's no start and end. It's like a loop. We still have some weird oddities like here, like where we have like, because it's a square road and we're potentially traveling in a weird way, we're like got these T junctions, which I think I want to avoid as much as possible. Oops. Okay, so let's fix the next issue, which I think I don't want to fix the diagonals yet. I want to fix the fact that we're overwriting essentially the original road points. So what we want to do here is just do a simple check. So first, tile equals we want to check tile equals tile map get tile. And then we're gonna have our point, which is our road point. I think we just do that. And then the sprite order here, that's the one, the layer that we're looking at. I think sprite order's a really odd name. I think layer, sprite layer would make more sense there. And then we just want to check to see if it is some here. Or rather, is none would make more sense. If no tile. Oops. This dude has no tile. There we go. Easy enough. Yeah, so now we shouldn't be overwriting the existing tiles in that layer. You can see there that works pretty well. The other thing you could do is just make the roads a new layer. Like you could make the little towns a layer 3, and then the roads are layer 2, and then the map's layer 1. But it works fine like this too. So now we can see kind of the path more easily. And here, like the oddities of the pathfinding, where it can't go diagonally, so it's going straight up, and then do. So that's a little weird. And then yeah, everything else is pretty decent. And again, like diagonals would make this a bit cleaner, I think. And give you less square looking roads. In some cases you have nice diagonals like along the coast here. But it's easy enough to add the other neighbors. So let's do that now. Northeast to the north side of things first. And we'll have a northwest as well. And then we'll have the same thing for south, southeast, southwest. Okay, so northeast would be +1, +1. And then northwest would be -1, +1. Then we can just copy that. Oops. base there. And then again, just checking here. And we want to make sure we check all of these. And make sure that our indices are right here. Or positions, not indices. Just copy and paste all these. Yeah, it'd probably be a lot easier on myself if I just used like a lookup table and looped over this instead of doing it this way, but it's fine. This way works too. Yeah, so this would be -1, +1, and then these would be both -1, -1. This would be the plus, and this one would be the minus. Okay. There we go. So now you can see we have diagonals. And you can see why we need to do auto tiling. Yeah, in some cases we still have crossover roads, which is completely fine. I think anyways. But we can avoid sort of more crossover roads by just simply limiting the amount of distance between the points in our roads. Yeah, because right now they can be quite vast. Like this one's way down here, where if it was up here more, you probably wouldn't have as much of a variability between the points to where you had crossing like that. Yeah, so that's simple A star, and it's like, as you can tell, it's quite fast at computing. Yeah, I don't know what our load times are, but that's pretty instantaneous for generating all the islands, generating all the road points, and then pathfinding between each of the points. And granted, it's not a very big world. Alright, so next steps. I think the next step would just be to have like a little sprite person guy just walking around in a circle around this map as sort of like gameplay mechanic code. And that should be fairly simple to implement. We'll have to just give it a thought as to how we want to do it. But now seems like a good time to commit our code. Added pathfinding between our points. Cool. We can just collapse some of these down. Alright, so if we want to have a little person sprite walking around the map following the road, we need to take the road path that we have and store it in some sort of entity component. Why a entity or component though over a resource? I think a resource would work a lot better because we're only going to have one road path that you're currently following. Even though our goal at the end is to have multiple islands, you're not going to be traveling along multiple islands at once. You're only going to be traveling along one island. and that one island is only going to have one road path that you can follow. Okay. So we need some gameplay stuff here. Let's see. Let's create a new file here called map. And then we're gonna have a struct called map, which is gonna be our resource, and we're gonna have a list of a road path that you're taking. And we'll make that public along with this. And then our map's gonna have other things, but we're not gonna add them now. But we'll have things like, just add it to do here. Add more map things like towns, dungeons, enemies. The enemies one might not actually go on the map. We might put that in sort of their own thing, because I think it would be cool if they moved around, and maybe like to make it sort of more challenging, like sometimes an enemy might not be on the road and so you won't encounter them, and other times you might have 2 or 3 or 4 lined up in on the road that you encounter. So if they're moving around and kind of just wandering across the road or along the road, I think that would be pretty cool. So we'll have to develop some sort of AI for those enemies, some basic AI, nothing too complex. So we'll scratch out enemies there. We'll just put etc. just to indicate maybe there's more things that we want to add. But yeah, and we could have different dungeon types too, maybe like castle, crypt, and then if we have time and we want to get real cool about it, we could have like a whole thing where we generate a crypt or a castle type map with a path that you follow on inside of it. And then you could choose whether or not you wanted to go in such a place, or in some cases maybe forced into such an area. I think that'd be pretty cool. But that's long-term goals. We want to get the basic map done first, and then we can expand upon the idea if we find out things are fun. If we don't like the idea and things aren't fun, then maybe we change things up and change how the game works completely. We'll see. But that's why this is a prototype. We just want to get something out there and see how it plays, get some feedback from the community, and then we can go from there, like what works, what didn't work, that sort of thing. Yeah. Alright. So we have this map struct, and we need to make it a resource. So we're gonna need it to have it be defaulted. Actually, I think we can just do it via derive. Yeah. Default. And then just to see how we did it here. That's state. That's right. Insert resource. We can do that in here. We have one for the Atlas handles too. I forgot about that. Cool. Alright. just insert any resource here. Initialize resource. Oh, initialize? Yeah, we can use initialize because we have the default. I think insert means you don't have to have a default. I could be wrong on that. Alright, and then this is the map. There we go. And then we need to mod map. And then pub use map. Yeah, that way essentially you can say map. Yeah, it works. Maybe not the best naming convention, but it gets the job done. Alright, and then in here, we have a resource that we want to mutate. So we'll just put it at the end. Although, actually, it's getting kind of long, so let's do it this way. And I think I want to keep like the resources together and then the queries together when I'm building out systems. So I'm going to do it this way. There we go. And then we're going to rename this to tile map query. There we go. That way it makes more sense. And then import map from super, which is our map. You can also do like create game map, but super works pretty good. Alright, so we have the map, and we want to say road path equals road path. We're just gonna move it right in. And now, in our entity component system framework, we have a resource which contains a map with our road points, and now we can access that from other systems, specifically our player system. That's what I think we're gonna call it, just player system, even though it's like you have a party of more than one person. Maybe you start off with just one person. Maybe you start off with 2, 3, 4. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I think I want to limit it to 4 though, just to keep it less complex. And then we'll start off with one person actually, and then we can add more later. Yeah, keep things simple at first. Anyways, so we'll just create a new folder here called player. And then we're going to need like, essentially we want things to like move at the same time. So like if the player moves, the enemies move at the same time. And then like the pause functionality would be like, you hit pause and then nothing moves at all. The player doesn't move, the enemies don't move. And then that gives you some time to like maybe restructure your party, your player, your character, re-equip it, the person, like change out equipment, that sort of thing, and then you can hit play again, continue on your journey. Although I wonder if maybe it doesn't pause the whole world, maybe it just pauses you moving along the path and the enemies are still moving around. So like you could stop but still get encountered if they move towards you. And we could write some logic to like let enemies see where they're going to. And then they could spot you using some logic. We'll see. Let's start simple though first. So we'll have a player struct here, player, and here we want. Let's see, what do we want here? I don't think we want anything in here right now. But we'll have one because eventually we're gonna want things like player health, and a bunch of other stuff in there, like attributes and equipment, and maybe there's like a magic point system as well, and like stamina, like hunger levels, whatever sort of like stats we want for the player will likely go in there. And then we'll need a bundle because the player is definitely going to be an entity that contains components. And one of those is going to be a transform from Bevy. So let's import that. Oops. Use Bevy prelude. And then obviously our player component. So yeah, this is like the player component, and then yeah, transform is a component from Bevy. Telesense is dead. Great. Restart. There we go. Yeah, and I think. Let's see, Bevy. GitHub. I just want to go look at the book real quick. Yeah, okay. I couldn't remember if you had to add a derive like component or something to it, but no, you don't have to. They're just normal structs, which I like. Okay, cool. Yeah, so that's just like our basic player entity. And then we're gonna need a spawner for the player. So just create player.ls. Actually, I don't think that needs to go in its own file. And then is there an example of a bundle in here? Because I think for bundles you do have to default plugins, create your first plugin, tracking time with resources. Examples, ACS. Game rules, default, score check systems, state, my stage. Like, I know about bundles, but I don't remember the exact syntax for it, and it's not easy to find. Let's just do a search. Yeah, you gotta do something like this. Here. Come on, seriously? Restart. No, see, it's still there. It's like... one of these is like broken. I don't know which one, so we're just gonna end a whole bunch. No, 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 no. Restart the extension host. Kill everything. Alright. I think that'll fix it. Alright, so we have a bundle. Now we need a function to spawn player. And like, we'll have to have like some... we already have game state, but we'll have to maybe eventually have more stuff there. Because you'll like, want to have like a main menu, right? And then you click play, and then the game like spawns a map, does all this other stuff. Yeah, hi. I didn't see your comment just now, but yeah, Bevy cookbook. Yeah, I was looking at just the Bevy book, but this one's not as in depth. The cookbook I think is a good one to look at. Ooh, yeah, that's much better. I had known about that, but I just don't always remember. Okay, yeah, so we want to spawn the player. And really, all this is just, you know, creating a... let's see, we want the commands, I believe. Let's look at how we did it for the map. Yeah, commands, just a system that spawns. Really, this doesn't even have to be a system. We could just pass commands into it from a different system that actually spawns everything. Come on. Oh, right. We're not going to get any IntelliSense till we mod player here. Okay. Because don't have that included. Yes. Spawn. I think it's spawn bundle, and then we call basically player bundle. Default. Did I not implement default for it? No. Default. I think there should be a default for the transform. Yeah. Alright, why is this complaining though? Clone. Yeah, because that's clone. let's make player clone, why not? And it's gonna need debug too. There we go. Yeah, so essentially, like, ideally you want to have like some component that some system that manages game state and says, okay, you've switched states, run this system depending on which state you've switched to. Actually, using Bevy's built-in system, well, state system management would probably be best for that. Yeah, see, like something like this where you add a system, and then depending on like what you're doing, like for example, if you're wanting to set up something, it seems like on enter is what you use to create everything. So why don't we do something like this then, since we already have state, and then instead of calling the map and player system directly, let's just call it from inside of this state management thing. And generating's a really dumb name for game state, but we're just gonna keep with it for now. So I think you can just do this, generating, and then here we would run these systems. Oops. Based off that. For our map though, we're relying on loading information, so we can't do on enter. Oh, we'd have to do on update, because we have like this stuff that's waiting to be loaded. The textures specifically. I wonder if there's a way of writing like a system that only updates once an asset, like only runs once an asset has loaded, without doing it sort of like this, where you check it and then you have this continuously running system that really doesn't need to run continuously. It only needs to run once the texture's like loaded. Run criteria. Yeah. Like we need run criteria for if a asset has loaded. Run if connected. I see. So this is like a system that runs, that returns, well in this case it returns an enum. When I've connected dot system. Before input with system. Oh, I see. Should run comes from Bevy. I was thinking that was something that was defined by us, but it's not. It's something Bevy defines. I see. So that's kind of what we're looking for. And then basically we just move our logic checking into there, into this run criteria system. like that. And then I'm assuming you can do like a, what is it, with startup system or something? Yeah. Would that mean it would run that system once the criteria has been met? Also, what happens if the criteria doesn't meet, but then like it meets, but then it doesn't meet again, and then it meets again? Does that mean it would run multiple times? Or only once? Yeah, maybe that's a simpler approach to doing it instead of with run criteria, like having a load state and then just changing the state. Let's do that. I'm feeling that. And I kind of like the idea of with run criteria, but I think it fits. Like its usefulness is it's meant for something else than what I'm trying to do. So I think we can just do it here and uncomment our loading. We'll say the default game state now is loading. Let's just call default here. There we go. Alright. We don't want to set up menu, we want to call map dot. No, that's not what we want to call either. See, the plugin's kind of like really messing us up here now too. Let's get rid of that. Even though I kind of like having it like, I don't know. Let's keep the plugin, but move the system stuff out of the plugin. Like setup can stay there, but these two that actually spawn and generate the map, I think those should move outside. Yeah. Huh? Oh, no, that makes sense, because that's our new resource. Yeah, let's make that pub too. Okay, and then we want to have like, let's just call it load map assets. Yeah. I don't think we want this to actually be the system though. We want to pass what it needs. I'm gonna call it like get has map assets. And then we can look at the map entity here. Like we don't need to check that if it's loaded anymore. The handles we still want. And then essentially server. Let's make it multi-lined. Texture atlas handles. Probably gonna change a lot of this in the future, but loading. Let's add a comment here. A system to determine if we have finished loading and should change states. We'll need to load these in. I have too many tabs open now. Close others. Yes, save. For now, that's fine. I don't need to check that anymore. I don't need to change that anymore. And we have one extra brace because we removed the if statement here. Yeah, I think that's much cleaner. And this doesn't have to be a mutable resource anymore. Where did we get a game state before? I forget. It was in generate map? Right. We don't want to do that here. Oh, well, we'll keep that for now in there because technically when you're done generating, we want to set it to playing. That makes sense. We'll refactor this though so it doesn't work like that in the future. Maybe I'll do that off stream. But yeah, so we have the game state that we can load in here. Set game state. Oh man, we have a lot of stuff to load in here. First let's loading. We can use Bevy. Prelude star. Why is there so much stuff there? That's strange. not have access to the, yeah, oops. Let's make that public. I think you can also just do, well, yeah, super's better. Alright, and then game state, we want to set it to generating. Nope, that's not what I wanted to do. Oh, why does that say that? Get has map assets. There we go. Yeah, and then we're gonna have to do this. Yeah, sure. Let me boost up the volume. Let's see here. Is that any better? Alright, cool. Yeah, I had reduced it because it was like in the yellow and red in OBS. So that's good. Why is this complaining here? Variable does not need to be mutable. Is it not? Oh, yeah, that does not have to be mutable. It was before because we were editing it. That's right. So we can just change it to resource. Alright, and then this is saying that it's possible that we could have a state error. So we get a result. Just gonna unwrap it. Yeah, I'm gonna try to be streaming on a regular basis to help motivate me complete a game in Rust and Bevy. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah, I have a lot more free time now than I did in the past, so. But, you know, life can change rapidly, so who knows about the future. But I'm gonna try to stream. Maybe not every day, but at least a couple times a week. Alright, we made a lot of changes to how state is handled so far and how the game is like loading and stuff. I think that's a good thing. Why is this saying that it's never constructed? Don't we construct that in spawn? No, not this one. Generate map. Game state. Play. Do we not set the game state to playing? No, we do. That's weird. Whatever. Alright, let's go back to loading here. We have to use that. So essentially we want like add system set on enter game state loading. Wait, this would be not on enter, this would be on update because we want it to run until the assets have loaded. System loading. Did I not make that public? Of course not. Okay, sweet. Yeah, there's not a current set schedule for the stream. Hello, I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself? There's not a current set schedule for the stream. Like today, I'm doing it more early because I'm trying to get like some European viewers. Not that I have to have them, but I just thought it'd be nice for people who live in the, in the different time zones from what I live in. Perhaps they can enjoy the stream a bit more for longer, and it's not so late for them. So yeah, normally I probably am like on the weekend days I'll stream after 3:30 or 4 p.m. Eastern time. And then on the weekends, I can stream in the mornings. Just because I have, my daily job that I have to go to from 7 to 3. Okay, so loading. Man, I need to come up with a better way of doing this. Like, I always seem to run into this issue in Rust where, like, I want it to be in its own file, but the name of the function in the file or the system in the file is the same as the file name. So what you end up doing is like loading.system, which is, it just feels a little weird. And maybe it should just be like loading setup system and that, but then I feel like if you're looking for the loading setup, maybe it's harder to find that system because the file name doesn't correspond with the system name. But yeah, let's see. I don't know if that's actually gonna work, but we can at least attempt to run it and see what happens. Yeah, okay. Blank screen. It runs at least though, so that's good. So this returns, let's see, let's reverse this to just because I like it better like that. So when the map assets, specifically the tile map atlas, has loaded, that should return true, which should set the game state to generating. Let's see if we get to generating. Yeah, and maybe that would make sense to change it to loading setup. It still would be like loading setup, although you could just use like a use. But yeah, it's something I think I need to like just kind of think about from a like coding style standard and come up with like a good method for how I name files comparatively to what's in the file. As I'm used to a lot of TypeScript work, and that's what I do for my daily job. And so part of that, our coding standards at work is if you have a file, that file should generally correspond to a function, component, class, whatever's inside that file. It should be like a 1-to-1 ratio. And the reason behind that thought is in VS Code and probably other IDEs too. You know, you can easily search for a file based off of that. It's like if I want to find game state, I can just do this, and then there it is. I don't have to do like a find through the whole project to find it. I know by the file name where it's at. But yeah, maybe that's not the best solution for Rust, because TypeScript, your imports work quite differently comparative to how Rust imports. Rust modules work, that is. They're similar in a lot of ways, but definitely different. Okay, so we have to figure out why it's not like we got to the generating state, but it's not actually running. So we call setup. Oh, we don't want to call that there though. We want to call that like way ahead of time. That's why we're having issues. Add system. What does our map system look like? Okay, we're not. Wait, we call setup already. Oh yeah, let's not do that here then. You don't want to do that twice. Okay, so here we're gonna do the system. And then we'll put in the spawn map entity. We gotta export that. And then also export the generate. Sometimes autocomplete's not helpful. Like for these systems, I'm finding it more frustrating to use. Okay, so that spawns our map entity, and then once that spawns, we want to call generate map all the time, because our map might not actually be created yet, because the systems aren't running in sequence. We could just make the systems run in, I think you could do that in Bevy, where you can just make the systems run in order. Yeah, order of execution. Oh, that's state. Hold on. I think I just want to make, for now, to see if this is working, and then we can refactor it some more. If we just make the other system just run all the time, because it's only going to run, well, let's look at it, generate map. It's only going to run if it has a tile map. So if it's there all the time, it shouldn't necessarily matter for now. I mean, ideally, we'll just do this in a different way, where we chain the systems together. But I want to get things back to working for now. I don't want to spend too much time on sort of that stuff. All right, cool. The goal isn't to produce the most highest quality code, rather to produce something that's working and can get us where we need to. And I think part of my like reasoning behind that is I think it was there's this indie game that somebody made, Celeste, I think it is. Yeah, it's Celeste. And they released the source code for their character controller, and it is probably some of the worst code I've ever seen. Not the most, like, not the worst code I've ever seen, but it is some really, like, hard to follow, hard to read code. But despite all of that, it works, and they developed it, and they developed the whole thing in a short period of time, which I think is sort of the ideology I want to go with here. Although I still want to produce maybe somewhat better code than that, because it was pretty awful. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Celeste. I can't spell. So there you go. Yeah. Yeah, this code is just, and like just a lot of like functions and if statements and like cases, and like everything's jam-packed into this one class that's 5,471 lines long. But it worked for them, and obviously they created an amazing game. So, but yeah, I'll link this in the chat here. It's not as bad as what I'm probably making it out to be. It's just, it's not easy to read through, that's for sure. And you would think like a game that works so well would have like better code, but it doesn't, which is strange. It's weird. It kind of just proves that like the quality of code doesn't always matter when you're creating a game, which I think is kind of cool. Kind of. Anyways, okay, so we're back into like a working state here, so I think now is a good time to actually commit reworked how game state handles loading so that systems don't run until the textures load. Also added some Alright, next we want to work on the player some more, I think. So now that we actually have like a place to spawn the player, sort of. Well, an idea of how we want to spawn it, the player. I think our bundle needs some more information though first. So let's see. let me load in the texture. The original one. Let's see here. We can like choose our main character for now. How about this guy? Oh, oops. Selection. I don't think we want that to be in here actually. We want a new file. Transparent. That's fine. And then we'll save that as player sprite. Oops, ping. And then just look at an example of how to render sprites. It's been a while. Let's see, features, docs. Let's click examples. There we go. 2D rendering sprite. We could do some animation and stuff in the future, but for right now, just having a static sprite that moves around the map is probably going to be good enough, I think. So, sprite bundle, I think. Yeah, let's start in here. We're gonna need textures. Sprite. I think I want commands to be sort of above the asset, the resources. Alright, and then why is this complaining? Do I really have to tell it what it is? I guess so. Oh, because there's two. It shouldn't. I don't think you should have to do that. Cannot infer type for type parameter t. I think we could just do it this way though. Handle. There we go. Yeah. I think it's just, it's figuring out what it is because you're passing it to the materials.add. Which then just the types can assume that it's actually like a texture. Okay, and I think this returns a handle for the material, and it's like a color material. So we can do like yeah, And then I think because we already have a bundle, we want to like use that. So I think I need to look at what the sprite bundle looks like. It's not gonna let me. Take me there. Can you include a bundle in another bundle? If anyone in chat is listening. I don't remember if that's possible. Because that would make this simpler. Much more simple, anyways. Actually, let me just see. I'm sure there's an example of it here. Paddle. Insert paddle. How the entity, because it's insert, you're spawning the bundle, but then you're inserting into that entity the paddle. I see. So we could just do we'll already have a transform for. Really, we don't need a player bundle then, because all that stuff's already handled by the sprite bundle. So I think what we want to do is do something like this. Yeah, and then from here, based off of this same thing, in fact, let's do it like this. Insert. Yeah, and we can even see adds a single component to the current entity, because spawn bundle is going to create an entity and then push all the components in the bundle into the entity. Is there like an insert bundle? Ah, so we could still make the player have its own bundle, although I think it's fine right now to just have it be a component. And actually, okay, cool. So spawn player needs to run when generating, really? We just need to do it once. Yeah, I saw the news post. I read through it, but I probably forgot that part about it. I really like this screenshot too. Yeah, I've done a black voxel world like this and it's not easy. It's really cool to see the work that I did here finally get into master too. I kind of wish that it had the environment maps first, but it's still really cool to see that in. And you know, like, thanks to all the other people that actually worked on it and got it through. it was really cool to see that. That's kind of, I feel like that helped motivate me a ton to getting back into Bevy. Like seeing something I worked on finally get into the code base. I was like, wow, yeah, that's really sweet. Just like a confidence boost, I guess. But yeah, the new GLTF stuff looks really cool. But yeah, and I did see some of this stuff. Like one thing I saw that was really cool, the parallel system executor. I thought that was really awesome, and the system sets. But I just glanced over it. I didn't really read it too much. But yeah, all this stuff is really cool. I think there was something else too that I thought was really cool. Event ergonomics, rich text. Color spaces, wireframe. I mean, there's so much cool stuff in here. Like, I mean, just having like a new example game, that's cool enough in its own right. Oh, this is cool. This is something that I was looking forward to. Especially, like, it's something we'll need in the future for a lot of, like, really cool features that are going to come to WGPU over time. More easy as Right, right. Yeah, I see here. Yeah, I think the new bundle naming convention is really nice too. Pipeline rendering and other rendering optimizations. Yeah, maybe I should spend some time in the future on the compute pull requests that I did to add compute pipelines to Bevy. I never finished that up, but if there's going to be major changes, maybe that should wait and just get a complete rewrite. Because the way that I wrote it, it doesn't make complete sense for all the different use cases that you would want to use compute shaders for. It was kind of like just get Bevy's sort of like started with something in regards to compute shaders versus having nothing at all. But yeah. Alright, why is this complaining? Because player spawn player is not exported, probably? Yeah. So we just gotta include a pub here. Alright, so at the very center of the map, we should see our player sprite. Also, let me see this bundle. What did you say? Maybe just search for bundle. It's probably in the docs somewhere too. But yeah, it's not a big deal. I'll find it. Okay, wow. What did we mess up here? Oh, you know what? I know. Okay, alright. So here's what we did wrong. We put player sprite in the textures folder, and the way that our texture loading is working right now is, let's see. Yeah, it loads everything in that folder. So the solution is just to have a map folder. Not file. Map folder. And move our map texture into there. And then just do textures / map. That's cheating. I mean, we really should just make the tile map atlas like a single handle that gets stored, and instead of doing load folder, we do the other thing, but it's fine. Okay, so I think I don't see our sprite, so I think it's behind, or it's rendering on the same layer as the tile map and the same Z positioning as the tile map, so we just have to pop it up. We should be able to do that just by editing the transform here. X, Y, Z, 0, 0, 0, and then we'll say 10 just because. Oops. Let me see that link that you sent. Oh, cool. Yeah. That looks exactly like what I was thinking I wanted. So, cool. Simple enough. Hey, nice. Sweet. So now we're like so far zoomed out though, and we can't zoom in anymore because you can't go below 1.0 when you're zooming in. It's just, it's fine. We will fix that. But there's our little person sprite. Okay, and then now it's really simple. Movement.rs, and this is a system that we're going to have, and it's going to query some stuff. So first we want to bring in the map. There we go. And then make sure that we bring it into here. And we want to, we probably should have a player bundle, but I'm just going to throw it in here for right now. Also, like I said, we need to reorganize this so that some systems only run when you're under a certain state, like on update. Like, we definitely have the ability to do that right now, but for now, we will just do this. Alright, and we need some information in the player struct now. Current position. And we want that to be a U32. Because the player position corresponds to a position in our road path, which is a array, a vector. So really, this can just be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, etc. The question is, we're going to need some sort of, this would be a good use case for the, let's see, I didn't keep it open. Bevy. What is it called again? Cookbook. That's what it is. Just gonna keep this open over here because we're gonna need it a lot, probably, just to remember things. But yeah, no, the run criteria. This would be a good use case for the run criteria. My thinking is you have some sort of time, state, resource component, probably a resource, and definitely a resource, and then basically you check to see if a certain amount of time has passed, and if it has, then you run the system, the movement system. And all this system's going to do is it's going to have a player, which is a mutable query player. I think this is like this. Like that. I think that's how it works. Oh, sorry. Player query. Let me import that. And then we're also going to have transform in that same query. So the position of the player. Am I doing that wrong? Yeah. I definitely am doing that wrong. Where's generate map? I thought that's what you did for more than one query. Oh, it's, you gotta parentheses around it, right? Yeah. I got it. Alright. And then we have this thing where destructuring, which is going to be the player, and the transform dot rate mute. And then essentially we're just going to do player dot. Oh, it's not public. That would help. Close, 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 close. Current position plus equals 1. Player dot current position map dot road path. Okay, and then so current road position equals, and then we need to turn that into a, I'm just going to use the same name because it really is this, it has the same meaning, it's just data transformed. F32 times 16, because our tiles are 16 by 16, and then times 16. Oops, there we go. And then we can change the transform translation. Actually, let's just copy this into here. Maybe in the future I'll do it differently, but for now this is fine. And then 10 because we want to be able to see it still. Yeah, let's use size, right? Maybe we should just use size then instead of U32. Does that makes more sense? Okay. Alright, and we want to pub use movement. Alright, because this has to be mute here and mute here. Okay. I wonder if we're even going to be able to see this. It's going to run so fast. But let's see. Length is 0, but the index is 1. Oh, right. We only want to do this if we have a map. Which we should, right? We might not have a map yet. So if map.roadpath.length greater than 0. Alright, and then we're gonna need some checks too. If player.current position greater than or equal to map.roadpath.length. Player.current position equals 0. Anyway, we loop it. Yeah, that's working. Really fast, but that's okay. Actually, I'm surprised it's not like more jittery. That's pretty smooth, even though it's going super fast. And it's gonna be different speeds probably depending on what system you're on. But yeah, gameplay wise, we're chugging along now. It's doing exactly what I wanted it to, so. Now to take a GIF that's not completely broken. Do that later. But yeah, okay, sweet. So that's done. This is a great time to commit now. Let's see. Yeah, have the player sprite move along the road paths. Alright, awesome. So we did a lot today. We finished up our road path using some pathfinding so that the roads are like connected. Different paths are connected. We cleaned up some of the artifacts that were occurring, although there's still lines occasionally, which sucks. And then we got this little player sprite to move around along the road. I feel like that's a good stopping point. And then tomorrow I can come back. What are the next plans as far as like what we should do next? Well, I think this is a great place where we've sort of got like this road that this guy's following. That the player is following. The next thing I think is like more state for managing time. Like this system should only run every so often. We don't want the player to move this fast because it's kind of ridiculous. They're going through the whole map in like 5 seconds, so it's a bit ridiculous. We want to slow things down. And also we'll have some sort of time-based thing where like we say, okay, every 2 seconds you move to a new tile or something. Probably not that fast. Maybe every 10 seconds or something you move to the next tile. Or no, a better idea is to interpolate between positions and move slowly. Just when you're interpolating between the current position that you're at and the new one, just move it slowly. I think that's what I'm gonna do. And then yeah, and then you can fast forward that, pause it. We won't do that tomorrow, but interpolation is next, and that'll actually slow down the player model and make things a bit better from a gameplay perspective, where the player character is not zooming around at Mach 10 or whatever. And then we might add like a enemy sprites on the map, and we'll see where it goes after that. And likely more refactoring too. I want to move the player sort of more centric stuff into the playing state, and then make the playing state more of a thing than it is right now. And refactor the map generation so that it doesn't change the state to playing, or at least it doesn't check to see if the state is playing and keep running. That's more what I mean. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this stream, and I'll be on tomorrow, possibly tomorrow, maybe Tuesday actually, at like 3:30, 4 p.m. But yeah, I'll post in the Discord, the Bevy Discord, when I'm gonna stream, and yeah, see you guys then. Thanks for watching.